we're going to look at 4 different ways to do factoring of a trinomial if the leading coefficient is not 1. That means, in this case, there's a 3x squared, and the 3 is the leading coefficient, and that messes things up. I do want to mention that before we talk about this, make sure that there's no common factor. If you can take a common factor out, it might not be a hard problem like this. To factor out a common factor, it might turn into a regular easy trinomial. We're going to guess and check. We're going to do it by grouping. And then method 3 and 4 are kind of ways to organize your work if you're doing it by grouping. So they're related to grouping. So you can skip ahead to the section that you want to watch. For guess and check, we start by putting a template down that we know it's going to have to be 3x and x, because when we check our work, these first terms have to multiply to get 3x squared, and there's really only one way to do that. With a 3x and an x, that'll be 3x squared. Next step is to list the factor pairs of 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And here's the hard part. We're just going to have to guess and check. So we'll throw different numbers in there and see what works. Now, it doesn't have to be a complete guess. Here's a tip. We're not going to ever have a situation where we're going to put something that has a common factor. So we're not going to put 3 in there. And we're not going to put 6 in there. Because if that were the case, we could factor out another number here, and if we could factor it there, we could have factored it there. So those are not going to happen. So that reduces some of our possibilities. We should put maybe 2s and 4s and stuff in there and see. So let's try 2 and 6. That's our guess. We need to make it multiply to be negative 12. So let's make, but they have to add up to be 16, so I'll make 1 positive, 1 negative, and let's just check now. So our check is 3x squared plus 18x minus 2x minus 12. These do add up to 16x, and so this did check. This is our check. This did check, and it did work. So the answer really is 3x minus 2, x plus 6. Now I got lucky the first try. If it didn't work, then you can move things around. If the only thing that's wrong are this sign turned out to be a negative 16x, then you just flip-flop these signs. That's guess and check. You can speed up your guessing considerably by paying attention to the fact that the 3 is going to be multiplied by some number. So you're going to need to put a 3 someplace. And so the way you can do the guessing more quickly, is try putting the 3 in different places. 3 times 2 is 6, and another 6, that won't get you to 16. So once again, we're still trying to get them to add up to 16. So if I put a 3 here, that doesn't work. If I put a 3 here, I get 9 and 4. That's not going to get to 16. I put a 3 there, it's 12 and 3. That's not going to get a 16. So I can do this rather quickly without doing all the work out. This is 18 and 2. If I put a negative there, 18 and 2 will give me the 16. So I've just discovered what the answer is going to be. The 3 has to be multiplied by the 6. So when we go to guess and check, we have our template here, and I just discovered that the 3 is going to be multiplied by the 6. That's going to be positive, and then the negative 2 is here. So you can get to the guess and check quickly by throwing the 3 into our list of factors. All of the methods here are going to do the same thing. We're not going to find the factors of negative 12, but we're going to find the factors of negative 3 times 12. So we're going to find factors of 36. So the factor pair that we're looking for is the one that adds up to 16. And if we put our negative sign in the right spot, this will work. So I should put a -2 and 18. So let's write this with -2 and 18. Okay, wait a minute. When I say write this, I mean we are going to express 16x in terms of -2x and 18x. So the 3x squared is still the same. Minus 12 is still the same. But we're going to take 16 and write it as -2x plus 18x. And it doesn't matter which order. We could call it 18x minus 2x, and that's fine as well. So the reason it's called grouping is this step right here. We are going to make pairs of numbers, pairs of terms, and we're going to factor out the greatest common factor from each. These both have an x in it, and I think that's it. So we'll take an x out. These both have a 6 in it, so let's take a 6 out. And looky, looky, looky. These both have a 3x minus 2 in them. So we have two terms. They both have a 3x minus 2, so I'm going to take the 3x minus 2 out. And if I take out the 3x minus 2, this is gone and I have an x left over. If I take it out of this term, I'm taking that out, so I have a 6 left over, and that's our answer. By the way, let's see what happens if we would have written the 18x first and the minus 2x second. Here, it brings up an important point. When you're grouping, I'm going to group these two together. And what I'd like to do is add this grouping. Okay, so I'm going to have 3x squared plus 18x plus, and then I'll leave the parentheses, minus 2x minus 12. What this allows me to do then is be careful with the signs. So again, I can factor out the common factor, which in the first one is 3x, the first group. And the second group, I can factor out a -2. And this is slightly different now because the thing they have in common is an x plus 6. So we can take that out. And we have 3x minus 2. So it's still the same answer, just we got it in a different order. The box method is really the grouping method with a clever way to organize your work. As with the grouping method, we don't find the factors of -12. We find the factors of 3 times -12, so it's -36. And we look for the ones that add up to 16. So in the box method, we wrote this as 3x squared. And then we wrote 16x in terms of a -2x and an 18x. And we wrote it like that. In the box method, we do the same thing, but we just put the different terms in different places in the box. The 3x is there, the -12 is there, and the other two cells is where we put the -2x and the 18x. And this is the same thing, but just organized slightly differently. So the next step of the box method is to essentially do what we did with the grouping method, is find common factors to take out. If you look at these two cells, we're going to put the common factor up here. And the common factor of the cells in the first column are 3x. We're going to do the same thing with the second column. Whoops. And the second column, the common factor there is -2. And we're going to do now the same thing with the rows. This row, we're going to put the common factor there. The common factor, looks like they both just have an x in it. And the next row below it, it looks like they have a 6 in it. And this is going to be the answer. We have a 3x minus 2 times, and we have an x and a 6, and it's a positive 6, we put a plus. That is the answer. Pretty slick. Okay, the last method is the X method, and I'll tell you this is my least favorite because it looks just weird and unrelated to everything. So it kind of looks like magic. But let me explain it as far as I can understand it. The first step, again, is that we're going to be dealing with 3 times negative 12. So in this method, we're going to, again, show that A times C, these two things multiply together to get negative 36. And we're going to put B down here, which will just remind us that they have to add together. They have to sum to get 16. So once again, we're going to use 2 and 18 because they sum together to get 16. So in this method, we put we got to make this a negative 2. We put the negative 2 and the 18 in these boxes, and we put this as a fraction over the A value. So here we have the A value is 3, so this is 18 thirds and this is 2 thirds. Now we can simplify this fraction over here to be the same thing as 6 over 1. Okay, so simplifying is the same thing as getting rid of common factors. So we did see this method before. That's where it comes from. But now here's where the magic comes in. We write our final fractions as what the YouTube guy calls bottoms up, that this is 3x minus 2, that's that factor, and this factor is 1x plus 6, which is the numerator. So these are the two factors, and they come just from reading this. Bottom is the x term, x coefficient, and the numerator is the constant term of the factors. So that's that. Again, my least favorite method because it looks like magic, and I know next week I'll even forget it. So I like to go back to the basics.